Hi everyone, this is Aisha and welcome to a new video of Read a Day Club. Today I thought I would talk about some of my all-time favorite philosophy books that I would recommend to someone who's just looking for good book recommendations to start reading philosophy. Now these books really helped me evolve as a reader, and of course philosophy does transcend the act of reading itself, which is why I think everyone should and must read these books. So anyway, starting with the first one, which is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Now, I will always recommend this book to everyone because I think it is a great entry point into philosophy. And here's the thing: back when I first started reading this book, I did not read it cover to cover as I would a novel. I was intimidated by the aphoristic style of the book, and since this was my first philosophy book, I decided that I would just read one page a day or every 2 days. And I did not expect to come out of this book with groundbreaking revelations, not at least the first time, but I did consciously make an effort to familiarize myself with this kind of writing, this language of philosophy, the way the sentences end, because in aphorisms, in this type of writing, which are mostly reflections and musings, the sentences end abruptly and you're left to fill in the gaps. So you have to soak everything in before you can even begin to understand and internalize and apply the words and what they mean. So that's exactly what I did, and I still keep reading bits and pieces from the book from time and time again. It remains timeless. It insists on grounding yourself in the present moment. It emphasizes on the fleetingness of things, emotions, feelings, values, and most importantly, Marcus Aurelius instructs you on how to think for yourself. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. There is already so much to unpack from just that one single sentence, and it has that sense of urgency that not a lot of books have, that forces you to think differently, forces you to estimate certain parts of your reality differently. And a lot of the books that I mention here, actually all of them, they do the same thing. They don't preach nor do they teach. They simply give you a framework or a template to be and think. Now you can decide if you want to build up on that or you want to replicate it until you find your own way through the thick of things. Somehow Marcus Aurelius has managed to contain all of life and living in just a single book, which is amazing. Next book is The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Now, this is an essay that explores what underlies the human condition. It gives you a good existential view of things, especially when you think about whether or not life has any inherent meaning or purpose against an indifferent universe. Albert Camus uses the mythological figure of Sisyphus as a metaphor to question and confront the absurdity of life. Now, what this book also is a good reminder that you can choose to live despite its innate insignificance, it being life and existence. And I like how the book does not overestimate humanity. Sometimes I feel nature does that, but I like how Albert Camus arrives at the contradiction and conflict as necessities that ultimately leads one to create their own meaning. This book is On the Shortness of Life by Seneca. Now, this was my first time reading Seneca, even before Letters from a Stoic, and it says so here on the cover itself. Life is long if you know how to use it. And I have not met a lot of people who agree with me when I say that life is actually very long. It's not short, but I am definitely an advocate for that. In it, Seneca talks about the virtues of simplicity, self-reflection, self-awareness, and self-acceptance. He says that by examining our own lives in the here and now, we can make the best possible use of time. I would also recommend this if you want to get into Stoic philosophy and how it relates to living a more intentional life. Seneca dismembers our estimations of life, emphasizing on the fact that so much of who we are is a result of what we were taught and shown, and that it's possible to separate yourself from that and identify the gaps that make you you. Very powerful and compelling. So the next one is Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Now, this book, what can I say that about this book that could possibly describe accurately what I felt while I was reading it? It is so well written. It's so well written. It's so poetic. It soothes your soul. What I said about Marcus Aurelius and how he managed to contain all of life and living in a single book, this one, that's exactly what I feel for this one as well. It's another great read for Stoic philosophy. It insists on the immediacy of the present moment, and there's also a lot about detachment and solitude in the book, what it means, and how just the thought of it, of seeking solace, can bring up so many different sensations in the mind. Now, through the contemplation of death and impermanence, Seneca arrives at such profound epiphanies and observances concerning hardship, resilience, virtue, reason, discipline, and free will. So that is Letters from a Stoic. The next one is On the Suffering of the World by Arthur Schopenhauer. Now, this was my first Schopenhauer read. It contains a collection of his essays on human existence, suffering, morality, reason, and death. It's just so raw and powerful and strangely empathetic too, because he somehow explores why humans feel pain as profoundly as we do and the ways in which we internalize that pain. Now, we silently internalize our sufferings, which more often than not can be interpreted as external longing. Now, this is a very complicated thought, but the way that Schopenhauer arrives at this observation is just so good. All our visceral responses to reality, he says, pulls us further and further away from ourselves unless we undertake a process that can be very simply explained as a philosophical inquiry that, into our own lives. So I highly, highly recommend this one. Next to Beyond Good and Evil and the Birth of Tragedy by Nietzsche. Now, reading Nietzsche is like exercising your brain. There are so many layers to his philosophy that it's very natural. In fact, necessary, I will say, to get lost in them. It's a rewarding journey, no doubt, one that I've had to attempt to undertake many times. I will also very quickly recommend Nietzsche, A Very Short Introduction by Michael Tanner. It's a great guide to his philosophy, especially if you don't know where to start or you would like a more comprehensive understanding of his philosophy. Now, so this is something from the introduction. His underlying view is that if we don't make a drastically new start, we are doomed. Now, this can be applied to every aspect of life, and that is what makes Nietzsche so accessible. In Beyond Good and Evil, he deconstructs the concept of morality and various philosophical systems that underlie it. What I felt most intensely when it comes to reading him is how he insists on creating a new kind of personal autonomy, which is breaking free from a subservient state of mind and into the realm of individuality and self-expression. The Birth of Tragedy deals more with artistic expression, and also that he explores the mutations of tragedy and how it relates to our emotional and intellectual frames of mind. Nietzsche's writing can also act as a mirror sometimes, reflecting our capacity for solitude, deep self-reflection, and intelligence. So if you're someone who likes to question everything, you will find his musings, his reflections, his maxims, his rants quite passionate and interesting. This next book is also one of my favorites. It's Gravity and Grace by Simone Weil. Now, it is a collection of essays and reflections that explore the human condition in a way that is more spiritual, though not in a very conventional sense. Now, this book is an extraordinary work of philosophy. It effortlessly weaves together an emotional as well as a philosophical understanding of human life. And it also very lucidly embodies how Simone Weil chose to live her own life. Now, Gravity here takes on a physical and metaphysical realm, portraying a visceral understanding of the human condition where philosophy meets emotion and how we experience them. The nature of grace, according to Simone Weil, is the ability to transcend the human condition and its limitations in order to find a more, a deeper, more rooted meaning to life or something that isn't universal. And I loved how compassionate and warm her writing is. She deals with the existential search for meaning in a very different manner, which was very refreshing to read. And the last book that I want to recommend is The Conquest of Happiness by Bertrand Russell. Again, I don't have this book with me, but I mean, you won't find a book as straightforward and as simply written as this one. In it, Bertrand Russell explores the elusive nature of happiness and how it relates to our search for meaning. There's a lot about self reflection, there's a lot about solitude, authenticity, and emotional intelligence. I'm sure I'm going to read this book multiple times because the philosophical musings are so, for the lack of a better word, relatable. They resonated very deeply with me, and they're so nourishing and in alignment with how we estimate reality and emotions and our relationships with people. Russell's reflections grant you that space that space that you need, that you crave, to breathe into your own intuition and your well of individuality. So I think that for beginners, it's a great book to start off with, especially when you don't know what to expect, because all these books I read without having any prior knowledge about the philosopher and just that school of thought. And I'm so glad that I didn't research before reading them, because my first hand experience was so rewarding for the reasons that I wasn't even expecting it to be. Because like I said, I wasn't expecting to come out of any book with any groundbreaking revelations. So just familiarizing myself with this language of philosophy helped me to revisit these same books in a different light at a different time. So I hope that this video was helpful to you, and if you have any recommendations for me, please let me know in the comments below. This is Aisha from Read a Day Club, and I'll see you guys next time.